Good evening, everyone. I call to order the November 2018 legislative meeting of Media Borough Council. Please stand and join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you those who have joined us this evening. It's a 4-star weather day. Snow, sleet, hail, and wind. We appreciate that you've taken time this evening to join us. We have a couple of housekeeping matters, but before we do so, I'd like to thank everybody who went out and exercised their right to vote, their responsibility to vote early this month. Roughly 75% of registered voters in media voted. That's a pretty darn good number, whether it's for a presidential election or especially for a midterm election. So I think that media really shined that night. And however you voted, it's important that you voted. Okay, so let's begin. We have a couple of sets of minutes that we need to approve. We had our workshop meeting on October 4, and we have a set of meeting minutes for that workshop meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those meeting minutes as submitted?
So moved.
I'll take that as a second. Is there any discussion?
Second.
Hearing none. All those in favor of approving as submitted the workshop meeting minutes for October 2018, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. And second housekeeping matter is our council meeting minutes from this past month. Do I hear a motion to approve those as submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second? There is. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving as submitted the council meeting minutes from October of 2018, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, so we have some folks here who have taken time out on this inclement evening, and perhaps some of them would like to come to the microphone for public comment and privilege of the floor. If so, please come to the microphone. Tell us who you are, where you live, and what's on your mind.
Well, shall we be first? Okay.
One, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Monica Rahoric. I own Kenny's Flower Shop, and I live in 116 North Lemon Street here in Media. My co-host this evening is Megan Hill. She also is a media resident, and she is one of my committee members for the Santa Parade. So this evening, I gave everybody a copy of the brochure for the Santa Parade, which is going to be next Sunday, November 25th at 5 o'clock, preceded by the traditional fun run that we have, which everybody loves. And we just want to make sure that everybody comes out. We're going to have a beautiful day. It's going to be perfect winter weather without the snow and sleet and ice and rain like today.
That's a guarantee, I take it?
That's an absolute guarantee. I put in for it with Cecily. So we're good in that respect. So we just wanted to come and make sure that we can get on TV and let all the viewers who are probably at home undercover right now with a nice hot cup of tea listening to the meeting, and let them know to come on out and have a good time with all of us. It's always great fun for everybody. We have a couple of special treats in store for this parade. Again, every year we try to change it up, make it something a little bit different and special. Don't want it to get stale. And so is there anything, Megan, you want to say? No? Okay, she's just here for moral support. Yeah. So you all have brochures. If we have more, we're going to put some out in the hallway or up in the police station later on. And they're all around town now, so everybody knows about it.
So Monica, a week from this coming Sunday?
Yes.
Starting mid-afternoon, 2:30, you got a
Yes.
block party? And
A block party,
a lot
yeah.
of stuff thereafter.
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I do have a little bit of a question. I know it kind of came up. I've been talking to Paul about it in regards to a banner. And I just wanted to see if anything had come of it. If we were allowed to post it anywhere, or...
I did send you an email, very short,
When?
the day after workshop,
Oh,
and the answer was no.
I must have missed that. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. Okay.
No.
I know that you guys are in
Even though someone may
transition
want
with
to
that
look
kind
at
of
it, it's my
stuff.
understanding the borough actually did help pay for or purchase the banner, so it's actually a municipal piece of property, so zoning can be looked differently sometimes in that scenario.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, anyway.
We
That's it.
did, we did discuss it with our solicitor, and unfortunately, having discussed it with the solicitor, well, we thought that we understand that under our code, it probably doesn't fly. So it wasn't as if we took we said it gave a gleeful no. We did discuss it, and unfortunately, that appears to be the way that the code is written.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you anyway, and come on out. Okay.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Monica. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to address council at this time? If so, please come. We'll move on to the engineer's report. Mr. Mattson, what do you have for us today?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one quick item. Just an update on the Veterans Square Garden project. As I hope everyone has seen, it's been underway for a couple weeks now. I think it looked good. The contractor reports that the decking and sort of ornamental items are about 90% completed. He expects to have the project wrapped up within the next week or two. There were some delays to weather and some other things, but on the whole, I'm very happy with the contractor. They've been great to work with. Verizon, who has been the adjacent building there, has been very helpful in moving the project along. So I'm looking forward to a successful project down there on Veterans Square. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Mattson? Hearing none, we'll move along to the solicitor report. Mr. Scott.
Thank you. I wanted to bring to your attention a recent amendment to the Borough Code. I don't think, if I did this before, please stop me, but there was recent amendments regarding contracting under emergency circumstances. The statute has never had language allowing you to be exempt from bidding and advertising requirements on for emergency purposes, but there's been case law allowing it. The Borough Code's now been amended to make it more explicit and to set up steps for what you must do when you need to contract on an emergency basis.
Right.
The thing that's relevant for your purposes is that because it's emergency circumstances, you're not required to advertise and get the three telephonic quotes. But at your next council meeting following an emergency, you need to adopt a resolution stating what contract was entered into, how much it was for, and describing what the emergency was. So most happens often is relevant with sewer facilities, which the borough doesn't own. So this may not be as relevant in media as it is in some other places. But if you had traffic signals that were damaged in a car accident or something like that, you would now use this process. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Any other comments, Mr. Scott?
No, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Scott at this time? Hearing no call, we'll then move on to the mayor's report. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, the police department during the month of October had 691 complaints. I want to call your attention, I'm not going to read it all, to the police speed sign traffic detail report from the week of October 19th through 24th. It's really detailed and you get a feel for the traffic issues on Baltimore Pike. So take a look at it when you have a chance. Again, I'm not going to review it now. Take quite a while. The parade went well. We had 70 elements in the parade, 10 bands. Got decent publicity, and we think we might do it again next year. So that's my
And this
report.
was, this was the what,
59. Next year is the 60th.
This-
Next year is also a 100th anniversary for World War II. It's the end of the war and then the armistice. Which also brings me to, I wasn't going to say this, but this is kind of important. The Korean Republic was founded in Korean Congress was founded in 1919. So it's their 100th anniversary. They are also a close neighbor of Peter Williamson. They're right across the street. And that's where Dr. Philip Jason, who was to be the first president of Korea, basically put together what is today the Korean government in 1947. So they're going to have a lot of events around that. That's a big deal for them. So Peter, expect your neighborhood to be kind of lively, especially in April. April is the day it was of the 100th anniversary for them. A lot of people don't know that it was actually founded by Philip Jason, who moved here. The Congress was 1919, but then he moved here in 1925, lived till he passed away in 51. And he was the driving force behind it.
So he-
Aren't you glad you asked?
Yes. So he was a Borough resident?
He thinks he was. His
No.
office,
Upper Providence.
his office was on State Street, 300 block of State Street is where his doctor's office were.
Borough.
Yeah, and he was the first Korean citizen in the United States, and he was the first Korean medical doctor in the United States.
Terrific.
I did that without any notes. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, you've touched upon the Veterans Day Parade, and as always, it was a moving ceremony.
Yes.
Care to say a few words about a gentleman whose presence was missed?
Yeah, well, his presence was missed, but Dale Diamond did recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and Joe Diamond was our Grand Marshal who first talked about his experience in Iraq and what he did in Iraq and the problems he has since he's come back, which is what we were really interested in. But then he started talking about his father, and his father was the reason why he went into the service. And let's see, I got through the parade without Bob Diamond. I would rather have had Bob Diamond like I had for the last 20 years. But, you know, he's sorely missed, and I'm sure he was watching it. He said he was going to be watching it, he just didn't know from where.
And we had a fair amount of people who were newly elected president. So, sorry.
He had a what?
Well, there are a number of
officials.
persons who were there in an elected capacity, such as Mary Gay Scanlon was there,
yeah.
Tim Kearney was there, and there were several others as well.
Yeah.
So it was, as always, well attended.
Yeah, elected officials, quite a few of them showed up, both parties.
Yes.
All
This
right.
was there.
Mr. Mayor, anything else for your report?
No.
Any questions for the mayor? Hearing none, we'll move along to council committee reports. Before we do that, and before I forget, it is my duty to announce that before tonight's meeting, we met in executive session, and we did discuss a legal matter, specifically a lawsuit that has been brought against the Borough Media and various officials by the Broomos Lake Country Club. All right, so let's move along then. Properties, public works.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention, I think I mentioned this at the parade, that George Anthony also passed away last month, as well as a great veteran, a longtime resident of media, showed up on D-Day, had a role on D-Day, he landed a craft, I think, on D-Day, and a low-key man who also, we really respect his service. I wanted to mention George Anthony.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul?
Okay. Going to some of the legislative requirements for this evening. First on the agenda is the agreement for an annual service for maintenance on our Olive Street garage. This is something that we've been looking at for some time. The agreement would be for the first year is a cost of $32,550. The $84.50 is for restoration or getting it back into shape. $7,500 a year, $7,500 for some other repairs. But the base price for the first year would be $32,550, and then for years 2, 3, 4, and 5 would be a pricing summary of a total of $24,100. So I would make a motion that we enter into an agreement for annual service and maintenance with Structure Care Engineering at the prices referenced, and that is in the form of a motion.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
There is. Is there any discussion on the motion?
This is something we've needed to do, and we'll hopefully keep the garage going for a long, long time.
Right, so a couple of years back, we spent a fair amount of money to rehabilitate the garage, in order to get a couple more decades worth of useful life out of it. But if you can think of the garage not as just one slab on top of another slab, but each deck has multiple slabs, and they can move depending upon what the weather conditions are like. So just as with windows, you need to caulk them every now and then to keep them windproof, we need to caulk the decks on a regular basis so that they are relatively weatherproof. And we're entering into a contract, or taking promotion, decide whether or not we're going to be entering into a contract to have that work done on a structured basis. Unless there are any other comments? All those in favor of entering into the agreement of annual service and maintenance at the Alice Street parking garage on the terms as outlined by Councilman Robinson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Another significant agenda item is a proposal to enter into a lease agreement for a office copier. Very pleased to say that our staff diligently did their work and were able to get a new copier for actually cheaper than what we're paying for our existing copier. We're also able to maintain our existing copier and move it to the police department, whose copier is in relatively bad shape. So this is also a CoStar's vendor, so I make a motion that we enter into a lease agreement with KDI for a, let me make sure I get this right, a C550, whatever that is, at a cost of $393 per month for 45 months, and the first 3 months are free. So that is in the form of a motion also.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion on the motion?
What's the name of the company again?
KDI, I think it was.
KDI, Keystone Digital Imaging, and they are a CoStar's vendor. So that means we did not have to go out to bid for it.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions concerning the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the motion, or approving the borough entering into an agreement with KDI for administrative office copier on the terms that were outlined by Councilman Robinson, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Last on the agenda is authorize our borough manager, and I guess it need be our solicitor, to put or authorize the sale of used police vehicles on Municipid. Municipid is an online auction that we've been starting to use, is very successful. I am not sure exactly how it's done, but we've used it in the past. I'll make a motion that we authorize the manager and our solicitor to place used police vehicles on Municipid.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Paul, I have a question.
Yes.
Is this for a set period of time, or is it not?
What do you mean by, they usually put it up on, it's like an ongoing,
Yeah, there's a deadline.
you can set a deadline, I'm not sure if
Yeah.
you do.
I think we normally do. You have a deadline by which to submit bids, and you sell it to the highest bidder unless the bids are lower than what you estimate it to be worth.
Well, I probably asked the question wrongly then. What I meant to ask was whether or not this is an arrangement that will be ongoing, or...
Oh,
Well, it depends on the property. I think
Yeah.
that
We
each
have to
time
do it
there's
each
a piece of, right, every time there's a piece of property to sell, the staff assess whether this is the best way to do it. Or
Okay, all right, now I understand. Okay, unless there are any other questions? All those in favor of authorizing the manager and the borough solicitor to enter into an agreement for the sale of police vehicles on Municipid, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
and last is just a little comment I wanted to make. We on Borough Council have received a few emails from residents up near the youth center due to the fact that there was a article on a website that referenced that the Borough of Media was moving our highway garage and our trash trucks from our existing garage in the industrial district up to the youth center. I have no idea where the author of this article came up with this information. I want to make sure the residents, particularly on Providence Road and North Monroe Street, are aware that this has never even been discussed by the borough and has no intention of the borough. I can say that 40 years ago, we used it, but it has been 40 years since we've had a trash truck stored in that location. So I really don't know where the information came from, and it will be one of the few times you will hear me say that this is fake news. So please disregard it, and I will touch base with the author when I have the opportunity to try to find out where he came up with such bogus information. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Councilman Robinson? All righty, then we'll move along to the Business Authority, Historic, Public Safety, and Civil Service. Councilwoman Lisa Johnson.
Thank you. The first item on my agenda is a housekeeping item, and I'd like to make a motion to authorize our solicitor to draft the annual traffic ordinance amendments.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of authorizing our solicitor to draft the annual traffic ordinance amendments, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Second item is a mass gathering permit application for the Media Farmers Market. Now this is actually two items on the agenda, number 2 and number 3, that relate to the Media Farmers Market. This is, I'll call it an extension of the current farmers market, because in the past, when we've had the farmers market, it started in April and went to November, but they had a very successful year this year, and they would like to extend it into the winter time. Not every week, every other week, I believe. And so it's extended from December of 18 to April of 19. And then the third item on my agenda is next year's application for a mass gathering permit for the farmers market, starting in May and going till November and continuing in December and going through April of 2020. So it's an entire year next year, not starting till May of next year. So it's a lot of time, I guess, on these mass gathering permits. So let's take them one at a time. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the mass gathering permit application for the Media's Farmers Market from December 2018 through April 2019.
Second.
Motion been made and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Amy, you might know this better. Was there any discussion with regarding your timing as far as?
Yeah, 10 to 2,
So
so
we'll
the
be-
time
so-
has been switched.
So we could amend the motion from 10 to 2, and then also a
Is
workshop.
that the next item?
10 to 12.
I'm sorry, okay, so 10 to 12 is for the winter months, I'm sorry, and then the following mass gathering permit will be 10 to 2, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So now we're dealing with the first of those two
So
mass
the
gathering
first
permit
is 10 to
applications.
12 every other week.
And that permit's correct then, right, Lisa?
Yeah, that's what it
Okay, I
says.
just want to make sure, because it's not referenced on the agenda. Well, there was discussion with the winter one, with pending approval by the Public Works in case it's a bad day or snow and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are there any other questions? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the mass gathering permit application for the Media Farmers Market for a cold weather session from December through April, this coming December through this coming April, every other week, at its current location, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And the second phase of the farmers market mass gathering permit request, again, starts next May and goes really through April the following year, 2020. So I make a motion to approve the mass gathering permit.
Okay.
Motion been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? I have a question. I don't know if anybody has the answer, but typically when we approve mass gathering permits, it's for a one-year period of time. And this is
This is a
extending.
one-year period, but it doesn't start till May of 2019.
No, what I mean is that would be for the calendar year. So this is extending through to April of 2020.
Right.
I'm unaware of any other example that of approving a mass gathering permit application for beyond the upcoming calendar year. And I'm a little bit concerned about setting that type of precedent. My suggestion would be if you could modify the motion such as only for the Media's Farmers Market from May through November, and then towards the end of next year, we can consider the winter market later on in 2019. I think that would avoid that potential.
I agree
Well,
with
why
Brian.
don't we go to December of 2019 and then we'll start January to December in 2020?
I guess
Well,
we
I
could
think
do
what Brian
that.
said, you were going to have an application for your, quote, spring, summer.
I mean, at this point,
We're basically through the end of November. But if there's going to be any difference in the way that the market during the cold
Yeah,
weather
you're
months
right,
are
like-
going to be set up, then we're really going to have kind of a clunky motion.
so
So would you amend your,
It's for Lisa to decide whether or not to amend her motion.
Well, do you want to just postpone this till next month?
No, I
Modify the amendment, the
no, we
application?
could still do the one for
I
the,
think in November 2019 makes sense.
Yeah, that's fine, we can amend that.
Okay, so the original motion has been amended, and is there a second to the amended motion?
Second.
There is. Any further discussion or question?
So, it's been amended to what?
The motion is now to approve the Media Farmers Market from this coming May 2019 through the end of November 2019. That's it.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, I don't, why not just end it in December to 2019?
Because the market runs a little differently in the winter, so it might need a separate mass gathering permit. Because it has
Okay.
different qualification, different setup and time and.
Okay.
Well, this one currently was written in that way. It said weekly, every Sunday from May to November, and first and third Sundays from December. I mean, I don't know that it has to be all the same for it to be.
I would assume Mr. Smith, I was confused why there were two, but he must have wanted there to be two applications.
I think I do agree with Brian. I mean, I think it keeps it more clean if we have spring, summer, and then
Two
winter, winter one. And you continue to do that, it takes 30 seconds to fill out another mass
Well, I'm
gathering
just
permit.
wondering about your planning. Does it adversely affect the planning if we break it up 1 year into two pieces?
I don't think so. I mean, I can check it out back at the committee, but,
Okay.
I mean, this pulls us to the end of next year, so that's pretty
Well,
solid.
Okay. Is there any other question?
Yeah.
All right, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of approving the mass gathering permit application for the Media Farmers Market from this coming May through November 2019, please say aye.
yes.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. And the last item is a third mass gathering application from the MBA for the New Year's Eve community celebration and ball drop, an annual event that's become quite popular. It's scheduled for obviously Saturday, December 31st, 2018. The streets around Spazos will shut down at 10 p.m. And there was discussion to have the cars no longer park on State Street after 9 p.m. And the MBA and the police have discussed the plans and they know how they're going to operate on that night to make sure everybody's safe and property's not damaged. So I'd like to make a motion to approve this application.
The motion's been made, it has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
I still have questions regarding the parking. Because the parking is, no one's allowed to park past 9 o'clock? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Because that was very confusing to people last year, so, I mean, we should possibly think of just closing the street down earlier so the cars don't
The restaurants were not in favor of that.
Okay, But then last year, we had police cars driving up and down the street, making people at the restaurants concerned that, what was going on. So I think it needs
It's
to
going
be.
to be
I think
heavily
it-
advertised that the parking's going to shut down at 9 o'clock. So people are aware that their cars need to be off the road by 9 p.m.
Okay. I think it's still going to be very confusing, but
What part's going to be confusing?
the entire thing, Lisa. I mean, there were cars parked there last year, there were police out there walking in the restaurants with people having New Year's Eve dinner and telling people they had to move their cars. So I'm just saying it needs to be
The
addressed.
police try to do the
That's why.
car owners a favor by letting them move their car before it gets towed. That's why.
That's pretty nice, I agree. But what I'm saying, people are in the middle of having a New Year's Eve dinner. A police officer comes in, interrupts their dinner to tell them they have to move their car because they didn't see an advertisement. I'm just encouraging the business authority to address this better than to have police officers come in and asking people to get up in the middle of their dinner to move their car.
Lisa, will the meters be posted?
I'm sorry?
When we have Dining Under the Stars, we have little signs on the meters
Yeah, they're
letting
going to do
folks
that.
know that.
That's one way they're going to do it. They're also going to be on social media
Okay.
describing the parking situation.
Are there any other questions concerning the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the mass gathering permit application for the Media Business Authority's New Year's Eve celebration, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Does anyone have any questions for Councilwoman Lisa Johnson at this time?
What events are the business authority doing for the holidays?
What events? Are you talking about the jazz festival this
No, I
weekend?
mean, most of the time,
Starting with this weekend or?
Christmas, I don't want to say holiday events. That's one of the things I thought the business authority was charged with.
Small Business Saturday?
Why don't we start with Jazz Fest? I heard the advertisement on WHYY this morning, so, but it doesn't hurt. I mean, we probably have a bigger net than WHYY does, so. Well, let's talk it up.
I saw the flyer.
Yeah, I don't have a flyer in front of me, so I'm going by memory, but, of course, the Jazz Festival is Saturday. And Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving, which hopefully everyone will be celebrating with their families. Friday is the lighting of the town, and there'll be things going on State Street, for example, horse-drawn carriages will be back. That's very popular. Other, carolers and stores will be open and lights will be lit. And there's fun things on Friday night. And Saturday is Small Business Saturday, which is very popular with our businesses on Saturday. Sunday, of course, we heard earlier, is the Santa's Parade event. That's Sunday, and then what else? That's November.
That takes us through the next couple of weeks. They sound like they're action packed.
December later.
Now, the Sunday that the parade is the 25th.
Correct.
Because that's my birthday and that's why I remember.
Well, it should be on this flyer then. That's right.
And this Sunday is on Okay.
Next year, remember, it should be on the flyer.
I can give you maybe a little bit more specific times for the holiday stroll and all that, and the carriages
Why don't you come to the microphone?
They're going to have the carriages at Orange and State Street on the 300 block again, and I believe there's 6 to 9 on Friday and Saturday nights on the holiday weekend coming up. So if people want to go and get the carriage, it's at Orange and State in front of the 300 building. And it's also Small Business Saturday, so we're encouraging people to come out and shop small. And if you're a business owner, you should be involved with the American Express Shop Small Business Association.
So wait a minute, I think that they want you to shop large as small business.
Yes, yes, spend a lot of money on your credit card, and then they do give backs and all that kind of stuff to help out the small business owners. So we always try to encourage everybody to come into town and do that. And the same thing with the parade, even though it's not really Shop Small Sunday, but with the parade, because we get anywhere from 5,000 to 6,000 people come into town, a lot of the retail stores are flooded. There's too many people for the restaurants that we have, which is kind of amazing because we've got so many restaurants that people get turned away if they don't have reservations. The pizza shops run out of pizza. It's a good and bad thing, but we'll take the good. So I think that's all I have. I have the little flyer. That's how I remembered like the times and things like that. So because we just got one yesterday. So
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you, Monica.
Sure.
As is the tradition in media, we allow for free parking during the holiday season. This year it's a little bit complicated because, as we all know, the county's parking garage that is used by some of the employees and by jurors is really almost no more. It's remarkable how quickly they've been able to dismantle the structure, and I'm hopeful that in the near future they might be able to open up Orange Street for some parking and traffic. But we don't have any final word on that. I think that for now, though, in light of that complication, that we should do what we traditionally do, at least on the weekends.
I would agree on that.
Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Paul, do you think Friday as well, or just the Saturdays?
Friday after 3.
Friday after 3, Saturdays and Sundays, have free parking on in the Borough garage, so that people can spend their time in media and spend in media. But I think that will be helpful to that end.
I don't think
How do you want to publicize it?
that's a proclamation by the mayor.
Yeah, how do you want to publicize that? Usually,
Well, first you
we
can
usually
proclaim
do it I proclaim.
You're going to get on the rooftop and complain.
Yeah. I mean, usually it's done at the event we had up in front of the courthouse, so that we don't have that anymore, so. But, just issue a press release and that's that, Karen? Okay.
Or we'll find a
So
truck.
Friday at 3 through Sunday morning, or
Sunday night.
Sunday night.
We can always find a pickup truck and you can ride down State Street in a parade.
Yeah, I'll do that.
There is that. Perhaps Karen, we can
Put it on the
use
website.
social media and our website and get it out that way. I think that persons with bullhorns are a little bit passé these days, and we can use electronics.
We'll put it on our website too. It's great. We can
Right.
do that, and the NBA should do it.
So at least Fridays past 3 p.m., all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Yes.
Free parking in the garage.
Correct.
Okay. Might need a banner.
All right, thank you, Monica, for visiting us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any other questions for Councilwoman Lisa Johnson? Hearing none, we'll move along to Fair Trade, Farmers Market, Shade Tree, and the EAC. Councilwoman Amy Johnson.
I just have one brief announcement. Just a reminder that this Sunday, the 18th, is the last market of the season until, as we heard previously with Councilwoman Johnson's mass gathering permit, the market won't reopen again until December. We don't have an opening date at this point, but it will be open this Sunday, the 18th, from 9 to 1. So stock up on your holiday Thanksgiving goodies on Edgemont between State and Front. That's all I have to report tonight.
Can you still get turkey?
Thank you.
I don't think so, Paul. I don't think turkeys.
Okay.
Not this year.
Amy, just a quick plug for Shade Tree and for the highway and administrative staff. We've been very busy with planting trees this year, and they've done a bang-up job.
They have, yeah. And we have more in the budget for more pruning and planting and with our tree survey. So, yep, they've been working hard.
So it's good to know that that even though many of our older trees have reached the age where the recommendation is to take them down, because if we don't take them down in controlled fashion, they will come down in an uncontrolled fashion. But it's good to see that the borough is engaging the planting cycle, and we're replacing some of the older trees with newer trees so that we can
They
remain.
planted 3 on my block.
Yeah, just this month we planted, I
For your
believe, 20
birthday.
trees.
That's right. It's the birthday tree. Okay, so then we'll move along to Community Development, Historic Architecture Review Board, and the Media Arts Council. That's my portion of the agenda. I have a few items for legislative action tonight. First item involves a zoning hearing board application for a residential property at 11 West Jefferson Street. For those of you not familiar with that address, that is the house that sits at the corner, the northwest corner of Plum Street and Jefferson Street. Are there folks here tonight to, yes, and is one of you, Mr., am I pronouncing it correctly, Vitouris?
Vitras,
Vitras?
yes.
You're Mr. Vitras?
Yes, sir.
All right. And this is a request that, as I understand it, it is as a result of a concern to provide housing for an aging family member.
Correct.
And houses in Media Borough tend to be small. It makes it difficult for folks to age in place, and that is the motivation behind this request. There are 3 variances that are being sought. One is for building coverage, the other is for impervious coverage, and the third is a use variance. Now, I think, Mr. Vitras, that you've had some communication with Jim Jeffrey.
Correct.
And it's my understanding from Mr. Jeffrey that you were unwilling to grant an extension, that you had some difficulty with granting an extension for the borough to consider the variance request. And as a result of that, we have to work on a 60-day cycle because of the holiday season, etc., where we need to take action by the end of this month, which really compresses the time frame here. Is that still your position, that you are unwilling to grant an extension so that we can move the final determination until January?
Well, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do. My mother-in-law is now living in my home with my wife and my 2 children, and she had to move out of her apartment. She couldn't afford it anymore, so all I said to Mr. Jeffrey was, the sooner it could happen, the better for everyone involved, at least at my household.
Here's what I suggest. If you're willing to do that, please contact Mr. Jeffrey again and discuss that with him, because with that, if there is a written agreement that allows some additional time, that might be helpful to your cause.
Okay.
And I'll explain why. Our job is not to decide whether or not you proved your case for variance. You have to. There's a 5-part test for hardship that you need to prove in front of the zoning hearing board.
Okay.
And the zoning hearing board is its own animal. We do not control the zoning hearing board. Our sole decision is to decide whether or not to send our solicitor to oppose the variances that you're requesting. What weight the zoning hearing board gives to that opposition, I don't know. They might give it some, might give it a lot, they might give it none. But as you know, there was a planning commission meeting earlier this month, and there was no one present to advocate on your behalf, and as a result, the planning commission has made a unanimous recommendation that we send our solicitor to oppose the variance request, in large part because the planning commission really didn't know what the application was about. They just had some information on a piece of paper that was not quite what they normally get when they're reviewing a variance request.
Okay.
And so they felt a little bit handcuffed by the lack of information and the lack of anyone there to advocate on behalf of the planner, explain it, to recommend that we request our solicitor to be there to oppose what you're asking for. So that's not to your advantage.
Right.
We have our solicitors over there saying, yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. Tonight, I'm going to make a motion consistent with the Planning Commission's recommendation that we send our solicitor to oppose the variances that you're requesting. But if you agree to extend the period of time, and that would allow you to resubmit to planning some additional information, maybe have someone there who can explain the project to them, that might result in a different outcome for you, at least from the Planning Commission. So that's what I'm going to suggest that you do. Because right now, without a written agreement, we have to act as if at the end of this month, I don't recall the exact date, is it last weekend?
The 29th.
The 29th of this month. Oh, we have to move forward. If we don't, then the variance is deemed deemed approved, and that's not where we want to be. We want there to be a good process so that the best thing happens for all involved. So I'm going to make a motion tonight that we do send our solicitor to the zoning hearing board as currently scheduled, November 29, to oppose the variances that are being requested by this applicant.
I'll second that motion based solely on the facts of the Planning Commission and this recommendation of the Council President.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
I have a question. When would the next zoning hearing board meeting be?
Don't know the exact date, would be at the end of January.
End of January?
Yes.
And when would the resident need to submit
Yeah.
the additional information?
Well, I'd say as soon as possible, because otherwise we're moving forward with the 29th. Whether you're there or not, you've made application, you've paid your money, and the zoning hearing board must act upon it within a 60-day period. And that's the only time that we have within that 60-day period. So the sooner the better.
Any other discussion? Okay,
Okay, I'm just wanting to be clear. He needs to resubmit right away, is what you're saying.
Don't know that he needs to resubmit for a zoning application, but I think, and this is something you'd have to talk to Mr. Jeffries about, I think that if you granted an extension and you were to provide some additional materials, that you might be able to get another session before the Planning Commission so that they can review what you're proposing and make a more informed recommendation to council.
So you're requesting that the motion is that we oppose because of the recommendation of the Planning Commission?
Correct.
And okay, I get it.
Unless there is an extension that is applied for and granted by Mr. Jeffrey.
And in that case, we're not opposed.
And presumably there's not going to be a...
Once we get information from our Planning Commission and our advisory board, then we can make a better decision.
Should have been paying attention.
okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor of sending our solicitor to the November 29th zoning hearing board to oppose variances requested for the 11 West Jefferson Street, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
So gentlemen, good luck. Please try to contact Mr. Jeffrey as soon as possible. My experience with him is that he is very willing to try to work with applicants. He understands that you're not lawyers, you're not engineers, and that the requirements for an application for zoning variance, they can get complicated very quickly. So I think that's to your advantage to talk to him and see what it is that you can work out with him, so that if we can have a little bit more time, then maybe we can do this in such a way that we have the best solution for everybody. Okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, may I offer a suggestion maybe to the CDC? I think that probably most of us on principle are not opposed to this idea. I mean, it made it to the comprehensive plan. Many of you were on the council then when that got in the plan. So if there is some way that regular folks like this gentleman could, have a legal route and not have to go to the zoning hearing board, it's a little late for him, but maybe a future person, maybe make it easier somehow through some zoning code changes, if that's possible. I'd love for you to investigate.
Mr. Scott, that sounds like there's your legal training might be useful to bring to bear on this.
Swarthmore Borough just adopted an ordinance that, for the purpose of legalizing caregiver suites, is what they call it, to allow aged people to live in a house with not an independent living unit, but a semi-independent, like a kitchenette rather than a full kitchen, that sort of thing. That might be a good starting place to look at that ordinance and see if it has any traction.
How do you control that when the applicant is no longer residing on the property, and now you have a multi-family dwelling?
Well, I think the idea with this Swarthmore ordinance was that it's not, as I said, it's not a full-blown independent unit. It doesn't have it can't have a separate entrance. Kitchenette only, not a full kitchen. But your concern is valid, because once you allow a design, it will be used the way it was designed. So, if you create a separate living unit, when the people who applied for it are no longer there, it'll get used as a separate living unit.
We can get into a CDC, but I understand the logic, but I also think we need to address the concerns, because then you can have a multi-family units that we're not aware of.
That's why I wanted to leave it to the genius of the Community Development Committee, not the whole council.
Well, you flatter us. I don't think that the flattery is wanted. But I think it is a good topic for us to take up on the CDC. So Karen, if you could make that so, we'd appreciate it. For those of you who are watching at home tonight, Jeff Smith, our manager, has decided that he would take advantage of the holiday season and spend some time with family, and goodness knows he does it. He should be doing it more frequently, and that's why we have Karen Rapino sitting in, doing her able best to do what Jeff Smith usually does on these evenings. Okay, so the second item I have concerns community development block grants. Every year we have the opportunity to apply for grant money that we can use to good end in the Borough. Typically, block grants are for projects in areas that need a little bit of help. This year we've picked out a couple of projects that we think will fit that bill nicely. Well, one is for streetscape improvements along Orange Street. This will be down towards the train station. And the other is for a green and gray stormwater infrastructure project. In that order is the recommendation for application for the CDBG grant application. So I move that we approve Resolution 2018-43 with regard to the selection of two projects for community development block grant applications as outlined.
Second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor of approving resolution number 2018-43 for the community development block grant application, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Third item for legislative action is also a resolution. It involves a sewer module for 720 North Jackson Street. That's basically the intersection of Jackson Street and 8th Streets. Those of you who've been following this know that there is a planned development for 7 single-family homes along that corner, extending along 8th Street to and including the disused tennis courts. And that reminds me, this was something that was, I thought we had a nice treatment in our e-newsletter. The Borough has been trying over the past several months to get out information in a more regular and we hope more effective way with an e-newsletter that is available monthly. And one of the things it does is it alerts residents of potential developments in the borough, as well as what's going on at council level and events throughout the borough. So for those of you who have been receiving the e-newsletter and reading it, you know about that development at 8th and Jackson Streets. So a sewer module. This is an engineering issue. So Mr. Mattson, please explain to the folks at home what a sewer module is.
Sure, Mr. President, this is very simple. Previously, there was one home on the property, now there will be 7. So in so doing, we have to alert the DEP and work with the wastewater treatment facilities to make sure there's enough sewer capacity. It's very simple. So when the additional 6 units are constructed, there's capacity in the pipes, in the treatment plant, and also in the pump station. So it's really a smart measure to make sure that we don't cause a problem for our existing system or for our future selves. And that's it. That's all it is.
Okay. So I move that we approve Resolution 2018-44 with regard to a sewer module for 720 North Jackson Street.
Motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of approving resolution number 2018-44 for a sewer module for 720 North Jackson Street, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 4 on my agenda, I will not discuss. This involves a certificate of appropriateness at 101 Haldeman Street. That's essentially the corner of Haldeman and East Front Streets. That area is part of the Friends Meeting House Historic District. And so whenever one who owns property in that area wishes to make changes to their property, they need to go through a process with the Historic Architect Review Board to make sure that their change is appropriate for that location. And that's what the owners of this property are seeking to do. However, the HARB is not yet fully satisfied that it has all the information it needs to make a recommendation as to whether or not the Borough Council should or should not issue a certificate of appropriateness, and therefore I think it's unripe, and I'm not going to discuss it tonight. Otherwise, I don't have anything else to offer this evening.
Any questions for President Hall?
Okay, well, thank you. We'll move along to Recreation and Board of Health. Mr. Boyer, tell us all about Spazos this past weekend. It was a hop in place.
It was. I'm going to borrow the mayor's mic. Oh, no, that's fine. So I have a few announcements. As President Hall said, the annual senior luncheon was this past Saturday, and from the pictures I've seen, everybody had smiles on their faces, and they did a great job. So thanks to the rec board for hosting another senior luncheon. And we'll see if Linda Rooney can put some of the pictures on either in the newsletter or the website, because it's lots of people coming together. And one comment I saw on one of the pictures with meeting neighbors they hadn't seen in quite some time. So it's a great event, and the rec board has been putting on for quite a few years now. Halloween extravaganza, that was at the end of October the 27th. I would like to thank the Springton Middle School Honor Society on behalf of the rec board. They have been sending volunteers to help out. This year, because of the parade being postponed to the next day, I guess the attendance wasn't quite what it had been, but everyone there had a great time, and thanks again to the rec board for putting on that event. An upcoming event, Winter Wonderland. This year it will be on Saturday, December the 8th, from 12 to 2, and that is in the community center, and that will be Santa, hot chocolate, all the kids attending get a gift from Santa, so that has been something that's relatively new with the rec board, but it's also been quite successful, so we're looking forward to that event. And then finally, one upcoming event, the rec board does their annual family dance, so tentatively that will be March the 2nd. Stay tuned for that to be firmed up, but that was the date the board agreed on, so it doesn't conflict with any activities at Media Elementary. So tentatively, that would be March the 2nd for the family dance, and that's another event the board has been putting on for quite some time, and always is a great thing, and always a good time for everybody that attends. And that is my report. Thank you.
So
Thank
now,
you. Does anybody have any questions for Kevin?
so the Winter Wonderland is December what?
December 8th. Saturday, December 8th.
What time?
12 to 2. Right here in the community
It
center.
feels like it arrived early.
Yeah, it would certainly be appropriate with the weather right now.
Sure would.
Sometimes it had started out, I think, on the same day as the parade, but they decided to move it separately so that it didn't conflict and it gave more people a chance to attend at the earlier time. So they've decided on the Saturday the 8th from 12 to 2.
Okay. That's quite good.
Thank you.
All right, unless there are any other questions or comments, we'll move along to Finance and Library. Councilman Williamson, I see that we have an attendee in the audience, the Borough's treasurer, Brian Towson-Lux, and I'm sure that he's waiting eagerly to hear what the state of our draft budget is.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that word draft, because that's the most important word this evening. It is still the preliminary budget. And we will pass it tonight, or at least I hope we will, but the final budget still awaits us in December. So all of you that have put some time and effort into offering your thoughts and opinions on what should be in here have still opportunity to offer them before we make the final budget. However, what we have today, thanks to a lot of help from Brian, who's been an excellent treasurer for this community for a number of years now, is the budget we have this evening. But before I get to that, I want to talk about this year's budget, the result of last year's process. As usual, it's been tracking pretty well. We are now, into the final days, the final quarter of the budget, and we find we're still tracking ahead. Not quite as far ahead. We've had some big expenses recently related to pensions, but we expected them. We still expect that we'll probably end the year with a modest surplus. I hesitate to say what it will be, but it's likely to be in the range of what we've had in years past. So that's a good thing. Another piece of good news I should mention before I talk about the budget is there's breaking news from the state of Pennsylvania. Thanks to our fabulous grant writer, the other Tussock Lux that lives in Media, Karen. We got $200,000 from the state of Pennsylvania toward the 5th Street Park development.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's good. So that's a matching grant, so that's good news. Now, but let me turn to the 19 budget. The total for the budget, both in revenue and expense, it's presented as a balanced budget, is about $8.9 million. So it's an increase from last year, but every year it goes up a little bit. And most of the expenses, as it is every year, are contractual expenses. There's a few items to note that you might find interesting. One is, for the first time ever, we've added some payments to volunteer firefighters. We're giving a contribution to the fire company so that they can pay their volunteer firefighters when they come to a fire. That's a new thing. We're going to be installing parking kiosks in downtown Media, similar to what you see in other large cities that you visit. And I think that will be a great benefit for efficiency of our parking system, and it certainly is the wave of the future. Many, many towns are doing this. We intend to put a significant amount of funding into reinvigorating our approach to the downtown and working in tandem with the business authority. We have sufficient salaries to increase the size of the police department, should we choose to do so. We're going to expand the composting program that just started this year. We have a big stormwater project up on Ridge Street and North Olive, and we're going to be doing significantly more wayfaring signage, like you've seen the beginning of on the west end of town in front of the West End Flats and Burlap and Bean. We'll see a lot more of that this year. So those are just some of the things that are in this year's budget, some of the positive things that we see. So I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the 2019 preliminary, all four of these budgets. I haven't mentioned, I haven't separated out capital from operating budgets and operating items when I just mentioned the list of some of the things we're doing. But our budgets are divided into our operating budget, the things we spend money on every year, the capital things, the expensive items we invest in, like cars, trucks, dump trucks, and buildings, liquid fuels, which we use for paving, and the recreation fund, which funds all our recreation events. So those are the four budgets. I move approval for the preliminary 2019 budget.
Second.
Motion has been made, it has been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the preliminary 2019 general capital liquid fuels and recreation fund budgets, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support on that, and I appreciate the Finance Committee, especially this time of year, and the Borough staff for all the work they do in putting this budget together. Especially, I should mention, one of our newest employees, Jim Seaman, who joined us. His title is project manager, but he might as well, be, right-hand staffer to Mr. Smith, somebody he's needed for a long time. He's been able to do a lot of things that Jeff has only been dreaming about doing for a number of years. So we appreciate having Jim here. But I won't make him talk. Not yet. Okay. I neglected to ask for a motion to pay the bills for October. From the general fund, we drew $220,977.09. From the recreation fund, $3,268.03. And from the capital fund, $53,175.69. I move approval for those bills.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the borough's bills for the month of October 2018 as outlined by Councilman Williamson, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The Resolution 2018-45, that was requested by our tax collector. She's often asked to issue duplicates for her tax bills, and it's a bother. And it's something that it costs her some money, so she's asking to be able to charge a fee of $10 for such a reissue. The Finance Committee considered it, found it reasonable, so I ask for your approval of that resolution.
Motion's been made. Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Peter, there is currently no fee for duplicates?
I don't think so. Right?
Really?
Yeah.
We may want to take a look at the $10 fee. We may want to do a quick survey of other tax collectors, because I think. All right.
Well, we can start at 10 and modify it later.
Yeah. We found that our new tax collector is really quite energetic. And she really has thrown herself into the job in a very good way. I mean, she might be driving Jeff crazy for all I know, but I think that's done because she's really learned her job and she's very committed to it.
She watches too.
Yeah. Katie, doing a great job. I have an additional item, an action item that it came out of the Finance Committee.
Before we get there, I think we need to take
Oh, sorry.
So I'll call the motion. Unless there are any further discussion or questions about the motion. I'll call the question. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 2018-45 with regard to tax collector duplicate fee of $10 per duplicate, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry for getting ahead. I do have an additional item. Came out of the Finance Committee meeting. There's a sidewalk situation up on West 7th Street. In the 1930s, a whole bunch of oak trees were planted in media. And there's a few of these grandfathers still left. And one of them fell in a big storm recently, crashed on a house up on West 7th Street. And the root ball was so enormous, it took out a big section of sidewalk, dirt, and curbing. And the family that's replacing it wanted to avail themselves of the policy the borough has of replacing, helping fund the cost of replacement sidewalks due to our trees. And we have a policy that will pay half of it the first time and all of it the second time if you had to do it twice. This would be one of those situations where you have to pay, we would pay all of it because it's happened twice. Unfortunately, the landowner has been unable to find a quote remotely close to what we would normally reimburse. In fact, the quotes have been coming in at twice what we would reimburse. It's also a situation where it's a heavily used sidewalk and the neighbors would very much like this sidewalk to be replaced. Our solicitor has offered that we have two solutions. One would be to make the reimbursement and then lien the property for the additional amount of money. In other words, we would get paid when the house was sold through the title company. Or we could simply agree to pay the difference in this situation. In addition, because the landowner is quite elderly and her his daughter is acting as power of attorney, and apparently his estate is rather stretched. They also asked whether or not the contractor could build the borough directly, should we choose to offer to help. So, I'd like to make a motion. I feel like in this situation, it's a particularly catastrophic event, and it had a particularly big effect on that sidewalk and curb. I think we ought to simply just recognize that these public sidewalks are one of our principal public benefits that we offer to our walking citizens, and let's get the thing fixed and not bother this landowner with a $3,000 lien, and instead just pay the difference out of our own coffers. That's going to be my motion, that we pay the difference, pay the cost of the lowest of the 3 bids that she can show us, and that we would pay the contractor directly, that lowest amount.
So would you state it again?
That we would agree to pay for the repair of that, essentially pay for the repair.
Second.
That was a quick second. All right, so the motion's been made and it has been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I think we're setting ourselves up.
I know that could be pretty, like this situation, I'm not sure.
I liked your first idea with regards to the lien, because, I do believe I know the property that you're talking about, and at some point in the future, when that property is sold, I think they'll make a substantial profit from the sale of the property. So I think it would be, best for what we're trying to accomplish is to simply lien the property. We will pick it up, but at some point when they sell, we should get reimbursed. So I think that makes, it keeps us more in line with our policy. It gets the job done in a timely manner. It does not take any out-of-pocket expenses to the homeowner, but in the long run, the borough will eventually get reimbursed. So I think it's a win-win-win for everybody.
And, that's a valid alternative motion we could make. I just chose not to make that one. And I just considered the situation just like Paul did and came to a different conclusion. So, really, whichever way, there's 2 perfectly valid ways to go here. But I guess my motion...
Well, Peter, like my only concern is that, every time we have a heaved sidewalk, someone's going to be able to use that same argument.
So this is the second time, which means we would be paying.
It's not the second time, is it, Peter?
That's what
It's
I
not the
was
second
told.
time a big tree came down and did
No,
this
but
damage.
the second time that this particular stretch of sidewalk had to be repaired because of the tree.
Yes.
So we would pay 100% of our standard reimbursement in that situation. That's our policy.
There's a cap in the policy.
Yeah, it's up to a certain amount per block.
Right, there's a.
Right.
But this just happens to be a large.
And
I couldn't hear what did you say?
But this just happens to be a large piece of sidewalk that's going beyond the cap, correct?
yeah, and there's also a lot of fill and gravel and so forth they have to use because the tree was just so bloody big
So
that it occupied all sorts of space, and there's a vacuum there now.
it's rare that that's going to happen again.
I believe so. I believe it's so. It's a 75-year-old tree, and
Peter, didn't they say that the curb needs to be repaired and the street as well?
yeah, the street and the curb, everything. It pulled everything up.
I think this is like a one and done kind of
Yeah.
situation.
But Paul's point is
I
valid,
get
that we
Paul's.
don't want
I
to
like
make it
Paul's.
like
Yeah,
so
but that's
that
what we're doing.
anybody in the world can have could say, well, so I want to
However-
document the specifics of why this is an unusual situation.
Okay, but see now, it was media that planted the trees, is that correct?
We did.
Okay, and in essence, they belong to media.
They do.
And it's the tree that belongs to media that caused the damage to the sidewalk.
That's correct.
Therefore, and whereas, it's media's problem, and it should hold the whole responsibility, I'm sorry.
But Sarah,
Except
with that same argument, when someone comes before this council and says, I don't want any trees in front of my property, take the trees down, this council says no. And until recently, the last decade, trees have been the sole responsibility of the property owner.
No, that's not true. Paul.
Yes, it is.
No, not street trees.
Yes,
Street trees?
street
No.
trees.
No, that's not true.
All right.
I'm sorry, that's just not
I
true.
will document it for you. I'm not going to spend time.
Okay, so can we go ahead and vote on the motion that was already made? All right.
Unless there's further discussion or questions,
But that's,
I don't hear any. Just a legal point, Mr. Scott, with regard to the repair of sidewalks, legally, whose responsibility is it to repair sidewalks when they are in disrepair?
It's generally the property owners.
Right.
I mean, there's,
So we might think that it's unfair, but that's just what the law says.
to get you forward, I know they had me do $300 a couple of times. I thought 3, but you say it's 2. And that's because the tree thing just pulled my sidewalk up.
It's kind of complicated
Yeah, I'm
and
not
not
sure how
completely
to-
fair, but it is what it is.
So the motion, as I understand it, is, that's being proposed, is that the borough really paid the lion's share of the sidewalk and curb repair.
Yep.
As opposed to leading the property, we would simply bear the cost. Okay, so that's the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
No.
Okay, the motion passes by a 5-2 margin.
Thank you, that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for Councilman Williamson? Hearing none, we'll move along then. Councilwoman Dixon, Personnel, Public Relations, and Historical Archives.
Okay, so one of the things that, going back to the parade, there was a fair amount of TV, and that was a surprise for me. At night I saw it, because there were no trucks out there that said, Fox or anybody, and it was on CBS and ABC later that night. And it's in the Spirit magazine newspaper this week, and with lots of photographs and a story about Bob Diamond, so that was really good. Two things that we need to cover, and this is my, put on some glasses. One, the holiday.
Any glasses? Wanna
I
borrow mine?
I found a pair.
Okay.
The holiday coming up. Schedule for the Borough's employees. We discussed it and agreed that adding the 24th, which is a Monday, to the holiday period for, what is it, the 24th and 25th, right?
I think it's the 24th of Monday.
Yeah, I said the 24th
Yep.
is Monday, and the 25th is, the 24th and 25th would be the holiday instead of come to work on Monday and then just, okay.
No, we normally have a half day off on the 24th and a half day off on the 31st.
So we're going to go with a full day.
What we've been talking about, due to the time frame of the holidays this year, is we would give the 24th a full day off as well as the 31st
Right.
a full day off.
Yes,
So that's the motion then?
yes it is.
The employees are given a full day off on the 24th and 31st of December, as opposed to the traditional half day.
I'll second that motion.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Karen, you care to weigh in on this? All right, all those in favor of amending the borough's holiday schedule for borough employees such that half days on Monday the 24th and Monday the 31st of December are changed to full day offs for those days, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Oh, did anyone oppose? You're getting the evil eye from Karen over there, but don't let that stop you. Anybody care to oppose? Hearing none, all those, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and resolution number 2018-46, the appointment of Assistant Fire Marshal Dave Faringer. He's recently acquired his fire investigator certification And since Jim was going to be doing more time off, this would just be perfect for him to be an assistant fire chief. We don't have really any fires immediate, but if we did, he would be there.
So he would be there when Jim is not available?
Right.
Jim Jeffrey's not available?
Yes.
Got it. All right, so I understand that...
I'll second that.
Okay, go ahead.
That was fast. All right, is there any discussion on the motion?
Just for clarity, Dave has had he's been a fire marshal for some time in other communities. Due to the fact he's a part-time code enforcement here, Jim Jeffrey, who is our code enforcement director and our fire marshal, that would be a perfect marriage if Dave could fill in when Jim isn't around.
Yes, Jim has been very impressed by Dave's
And Jim
work.
is saying he wants to take more time off anyhow.
We'll see how that works out. All right, unless there's any other comment or questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving Resolution 2018-46, which will appoint Dave Favinger as the Assistant Fire Marshal for the Borough Media, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously.
That's all from me.
Okay, excellent. Does anyone have any questions for Councilwoman Dixon? Hearing none, I will ask if anybody who wishes to come to the microphone, please do so for public comment and privilege of the floor.
I have one more.
Our only potential taker is nodding his head vigorously no, so that's not.
Our taker's a watcher.
Brian, I had one more.
Yes.
And this is a problem that the solicitor kind of guided me on. The media theater is not in compliance with the lease. They're supposed to have 2 board members that are media borough residents. They do not. I am an ex officio, I was told. I thought I was allowed to be a board member, but apparently I'm not. So I would like the borough to send a letter to the theater giving them 30 days to be in compliance. Am I quoting this right, Bob?
Well, I think having read the lease today, I think the borough can cure this itself by just appointing 2 people to the board. So, the borough has a right, there was an amendment to the original lease, 2015?
5, I think it was.
2005, that's not long back, okay.
Maybe it was 15. No, it was 5 because it was signed by President Joe Hagan.
Okay, well, in any case, there was an amendment that gave the borough the right to appoint 2 board members. And if it ever happened, it hasn't happened in a long time. So I think the borough can just appoint 2 board members, send them a letter saying, here are the 2 board members, advise them of their schedules, and they're on the board.
So Bob, there's no cap right now? I thought there was only allowed to be 3 board members.
We've had 12, we've had 14.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's a
So the
minimum of
bylaws
3,
don't-
but a maximum of 14.
Oh, I
If
see.
they amended their bylaws to make it 3 only, that violates the lease. So.
Okay, all right.
And there are 2 that would like to be. One is David Kroll, we all know, and Jeff Rocio, whose wife was Barbara Domingos. Unfortunately, that's why. So they are very anxious to join the board and would be good representatives for the borough media.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
we usually have a process of soliciting interest from citizenry when these openings come about. I think we ought to follow that.
we have some unusual situation, Peter. There are, I guess, when you're a board member, there are things that are expected of you, and these 2 have agreed to that. Let me do that first. These 2 have agreed to the rules, I guess, of the theater, which is you have to donate so much.
So it's a nonprofit, so there's
It's a
expectations
nonprofit.
of the board
Yeah.
members.
Yeah, so in this case, they have said that they would. And if you look at the very amusing first couple of paragraphs there, you will find that this is a much bigger problem. And I brought a copy. I don't think everybody wants to read 2 pages, but if you read the first couple copies of what is going on in that theater right now, you would see that it is a disaster the way they're running it. And we have been proposing 2 board members for over a year, and we've been turned down. And the people that are running it, as you can see, anybody else want to see this amusing?
Bob, how long is the terms?
3-year terms.
I mean, I guess they really wouldn't be filling any terms if there hasn't been.
No, there haven't, no.
Well, they actually, they kind of would. I mean, if the terms run, say, if they have their annual meeting in January, and the last time there was an opportunity for these to have been appointed was in 2017, say, it's going to run until, 3 years after that. So this will not, this will fill whatever that.
Fill the term that would be in now, and then we
Exactly,
can look
whatever
at.
that is, right.
Okay.
Mr. Scott, or
Yeah.
perhaps Ms. Rapino, is there any precedent for how it is that the borough goes about making such appointments?
I mean, by council making an appointment. I mean, I don't recall there being anything more than that.
Is there any, then there is no precedent as to how it is that, what the process is for the naming of board members? For example, does it go through personnel, does it go through properties?
Not to my knowledge.
All right.
Mr. President, I would think that when the theater first came into fruition, I would think, and I'm sure with a lot of hard work, we could probably determine that, but I do believe it was just a decision of council. I don't think it was any great long process. I was thinking of doing mirror the NBA, but that's a different animal because that is truly a municipal
It's a
authority.
municipal body.
And even with the MBA, we have some discussion at the workshop level as to whether or not those persons who wish to be considered are good fits for the MBA. I'm persuaded by Peter's comments that there needs to be some type of a process. We need to hold this open in some fashion to members of the community. That seems to be only fair.
It's not a real privilege to be serving with the 3 that we have. Again,
No,
you take a
it's
look
not.
at this and see what's going
That
on.
might be so, but I don't think that now's the time to read a 2-page, single-spaced email and try to make a determination based upon that. I think we need to have some
If
time.
we're looking for the filling, I mean, would it be possible that we appoint people to fill the vacancy for a short period?
That would be fine.
90-day
That would be
time
fine.
period, so that we do get presence on the board, and then
And then go
give
through the
us an
process.
opportunity to take a deep breath and
I'd be for that.
find other people.
I didn't think of that, Jim.
Hey, I'm not ready to appoint people to the board tonight. Is that what you're asking?
I'd like to send a letter before their next board meeting, which is a week and a half or so. This is really a bad situation. It's putting the theater in jeopardy, quite frankly, which is why I'm a little more insistent than I would be otherwise. It is a real problem.
I know that we all we can be busy in our lives, and sometimes we have to act in a rapid pace. Perhaps that's something that but we don't like to feel rushed. I feel rushed about this, Mr. Mayor, and I am uncomfortable in making appointments tonight without having anything more than some basic information.
Would it satisfy the mayor if a letter went saying that council will make an appointment in December? Send them a letter this week, tomorrow, next week, saying the police requires there be 2 borough council appointments.
That would help.
They will be named in the month of December, and please provide your meeting schedule.
I'd be for that.
Okay.
I mean, we need the letter to straighten out the situation.
And Bobby,
Having them show up the next day is not something that needs to happen.
Okay.
Mr. Scott, I'm just calling Mr. Scott because I don't have 2 Bobs. I think we may want to emphasize in the letter that, that we would ask the board to hold off on any significant motions until such time that the borough has the ability to have borough representation on the board.
Okay.
But they're right at the start of their season.
It's not going to change anything. Boards are a 50,000-foot level. It's not going to stop the play from the curtain from going up in any play.
All right, so Mr. Scott, do you recommend that the council take any action with regard to authorizing the letter?
I think as long as nobody objects to what I propose, that a letter can go without any further.
Does anyone object? No one appears to object, let the record so reflect. All right, Mr. Mayor, please work with administrative staff and see if you can put together a letter that seems appropriate. And I suggest that Mr. Scott also be given the opportunity to take a look at that, make sure that all i's are dotted and t's crossed.
Good.
All right, unless there's anybody else who wishes to volunteer for public comment.
Could I'm sorry, but another executive session, it'll be literally 2 minutes, and it is on the subject of potential real estate transactions.
Motion to adjourn into executive
Thank
session.
you. Motion's been made, it does not need a second, let's take a vote. All those in favor of adjourning to executive session, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.